everything would change from this point onwards. Not necessarily for the better. This was largely because the seedling Arks city would have a visitor from outside. One that was almost there by the start of the main work shift. An exhausted man had reached their city, badly frostbitten and with a harrowing story to tell. He came from a nearby city called New Manchester. It was inhabited mostly by workers and their families, but their supplies were running out, and they were in trouble. Fearing the coming storm, they sent a scout team to look for help. He was the sole survivor. He begged them to help his people. That complicated matters. Although the facilities were lacking in order to treat the surviving member of that scout party. So he was kept stable until that was researched. It was complicated, largely due to not only did the seedling Arks city need to supply for its own needs for the storm, but also there was the search for New Manchester. It was out there, somewhere. And there was one location that was pointed out by the surviving scout team member. One that was unaccounted for previously. That was most likely where the city of New Manchester was. The original city greatly increased in size due to its industrial outputs. As for storage, that has been expanded, which was useful for storing pretty much anything, including coal. A lot of that was needed. As for what to research next, well, better medical facilities. That would be most useful. Well, once the steam cores arrived, more of those were needed. And the leader of this city, rather that city, decided that another steam... At this point, the people of that city were questioning whether or not to help New Manchester. Although it displeased a few who argued against that. The leader of that city decided that it was worth helping. A landmark was found. And that scout party that had found that landmark headed towards the steam lorry, as steam cores were likely to be there. As for the seedling Arks City, it was decided that an expansion of food production would be advisable. Once there are enough steam cores to provide for that, and other things such as medical facilities. Well, medical facilities capable of treating that gravely ill worker, the messenger that alerted us to, well, the existence of another settlement. Well, alerted them to the existence of another settlement besides the seedling Arks City. The primary mission of which was to preserve the plant life of the pre-frost world, but if they were capable of doing so, they couldn't ignore what remains of humanity. As for all they knew... sorry. For all they knew, they were all that was left. And at this point the infirmary was being researched. Well, there were no steam cores yet, but that would change eventually. Once the steam cores were delivered. An interesting idea, is it not? The city of Manchester in, well, what was Lancashire, was known for its industrial outputs. The smoke coming out of the chimneys. And certain occupational hazards. While New Manchester was not as well planned, based on what that last remaining scout spoke of. Lacking in supplies, which at this point the leader of the seedling Arks City could only assume that he meant supplies in general, not just specific supplies such as food and coal, but also wood and steel as well. The seedling Arks City, on the other hand, was better planned by comparison. Food and coal were quite plentiful. As for what to do with this worker once he fully recovered, well, the pub could use someone like him. Well, I couldn't... Well, if I was in his position, I wouldn't... Well... I couldn't spare any of the other... Couldn't spare the engineers. And that's what the leader of the seedling Ark City couldn't do either. Especially as there were no steam cores to repair. I mean, manufacture automatons to free up human workers and engineers. The steam lorry had steel and steam cores. What could be expected from a heavy hauler? As for the other scout team, the location of interest could wait until they reached the dreadnought, as it would mean more steam cores, most likely, when the time came to recall them. And time proved the leader of the seedling Ark City wisely. Sorry, time proved the leader of the seedling Ark City wise. Yes, still not good with words. Preparing for the worst meant that there was at least a chance to help the city of New Manchester weather the storm. Although, yes, the dreadnought had coal, steel, and steam cores. The location of interest, the expedition camp, was next. The search for New Manchester begins in earnest. Well, began, anyway, yes. Sorry, I keep getting the terms wrong. And yes, I know some of you listening might be laughing at how I'm doing this, but... well... there's precious little entertainment, so why not? Besides, you know, I'm certainly a capable leader. Not tyrannical by any measure. done by this point with the scout teams. Yes, the scout teams. With the western one, find all that can be found, and then recall them. As for the eastern one, find all that can be found, including New Manchester, before it gets too dangerous, and then recall them. That was their leader's plan, and sorry. And that's certainly what I would have done in his position. New Manchester was certainly near, although it was not where it was believed to be. Not close to the dreadnoughts that was abandoned. Well, that would need to be remedied quite soon. The infirmary was available, although there was no harm in preparing for when the steam cores would arrive. And so the leader of the seedling Arks City decided to have mechanization researched, so that fewer engineers were needed to operate it. Yes, that worker would be treated. And as for the research outpost, it was abandoned, but had some useful supplies, including steam cores. All that remained, as far as the Western Scout team was concerned, was to the southwest. So that was where that scout team went. While they were waiting for news of what was there, the seedling Arks City went about its business as normal. While the sole survivor of the New Manchester Scout team was kept alive while the wait for steam cores continued. That and additional storage facilities were built. as more would be needed. Certainly of coal storage. As that would be needed for that city, never mind New Manchester. As for additional wood gathering, that would be due to a sawmill being built near to the factory, or more specifically near to the heat zone leading from the factory. At this point, that worker thanked the leader of the seedling Ark City for devoting the resources to keeping him alive. This gave the people hope. Although that might be for naught. If an infirmary could not be built. Although, once it does get built from that point onwards, fewer would be needed to operate it. And after that, a more efficient generator was researched, where it would produce the same amount for a little less coal. Certainly enough to be noticeable. Just because something is hard doesn't mean they should give up easily. We certainly did not. Even after what we've all been through. And you're probably wondering how this will end. Are there other settlements out there still alive? Well, I'm not going to spoil that just yet. All I can say at this point, the seedling Ark City has a stable infrastructure, and New Manchester is still there, but not in good shape. And that the leader of the seedling Ark City is at least willing to help them. Even though the people of New Manchester, at least some of them, rather the people of the seedling Arks City, aren't too happy about that. As for New Manchester, that hasn't been found at this point. And was in the process of being remedied. Another thing in the process of being remedied is the growing concern, or rather was the growing concern, of wood storage. As for coal storage, that could be slowed down by increasing the amount of heat generated by the generator. Keep everyone nice and toasty. Although not too toasty, as it might result in the need of not wearing so much warm clothes. I wouldn't be surprised if a number of people miss those days. When they could stand out in the sun and feel its warmth, rather than the endless cold. Or at least what seems endless. people of New Manchester need aid, but to send it, first, the people of the seedling Arks City would want to know, in fact need to know, where to send that aid. A problem that the Eastern Scouts were trying to remedy.